Okay, I'll go ahead and get us started. Hello, everyone. My name is Michaela Wren. I'm a conservation specialist with Wake County Soil and Water Conservation District. My coworker Abby Hazelton is also with us today to help host our second Lunch and Learn on urban and suburban stormwater issues. Thank you all so much for being here. Today's lecture is Help. What does my municipality need from me, and what does the Army Corps have to say? Our first speaker will be Eric Kulz from Town of Cary Stormwater Division. He will talk about some of the items your municipal government may need to know prior to starting a project to address stormwater issues. Then Lyle Phillips from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers will talk about Army Corps' role in situations where you may need a permit for a project. This Lunch and Learn series will continue every Tuesday for the months of June and July. To see what topics will be covered in the weeks to come, please visit wakegov.com/helplunch. If you have any questions or comments during the presentation, please type them in the comment or chat box, and the speakers will answer them during Q&A. With that, I will go ahead and hand it over to Eric.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen here. Okay, so we're going to be talking here about stream bank erosion, and we get a lot of citizen calls every week regarding, and a good percentage of them are revolved around erosion. And so we're going to be talking about that. And so the first thing, if you have a channel in your backyard, an eroding channel, probably the first person you're going to talk to most likely will be someone from your municipality, from either their stormwater group or their engineering group. And you want to do something to stop the erosion. Well, the first thing you should really do is make sure that it's a stream, because going forward here, that's going to dictate quite a bit on how complicated or how involved it's going to be to go ahead and do your project. So you have something like this in your backyard. This is indeed a stream, but you want to make sure that it's a stream. So the first thing you should do is consult the State Division of Water Resources. They have people at the regions that are specifically, the positions are specifically involved going out and doing stream determinations to figure out if what you have in your backyard is a stream or if it's just a ditch or some other kind of stormwater conveyance. One thing you do not want to do is depend on various online mapping to determine whether something is a stream or not. You also don't want to rely particularly on a survey. And I'll get into that a little bit more in just a little bit. So here's a couple of different drainage features. The one on the left is not a stream. The one on the left is just a drainage conveyance from a culvert. The one on the right actually is an intermittent stream, but you can see they both look pretty similar. So that's why it's really important up front before you decide to do anything, certainly before you start doing any kind of digging or placement of rock or anything like that, find out whether it is a stream. Okay, here's just some more pictures of some various conveyances that are from people's backyards or from HOA properties, and so it's real hard to tell sometimes, particularly in the middle of summer or during a dry period. Again, don't depend on the survey. This is a survey of a property in Cary. You can see the red square there in the center says center line of ditch. Well, these folks, in addition to building a deck, piped that feature, and it was not a ditch; it was a stream. So it kind of caused them a little bit of complications in improving their property. So you got a lot of surveys out there that say ditch. Don't assume it's a ditch because the survey says so. Got to decide on a scope of work for your project. Why are you doing the project? Are you stopping erosion? What's the purpose of the project? What's the limits of your project? Are you just doing it on your own property in your backyard? Are you going to, do your neighbors have similar issues, and would there be some advantage, or would it be good to combine projects and do it with a number of your neighbors? You have to identify your project constraints. Lyle's going to talk about some of the regulatory considerations, whether, if you have to get permits or what kind of permits you need. You have to look at things like access issues. Do you have the ability to get a piece of equipment down to your property? Is it going to come across your property? Is it going to come across neighbors' properties? Is it going to come in through HOA property or even town property? Are there easements and encroachments that you have to worry about? Do you need to get encroachment agreements? And cost is most certainly something that you're going to need to consider before heading too far down addressing an erosion issue in your yard. Is it necessary? Okay, here's a couple of pictures here. This was a citizen call. Citizen called, said, "Oh my gosh, we have this stream and it's eroding you can see all the roots are sticking out of the bank, and the stream is eroding." This is actually in my neighborhood. This has been like this for 10 years. And if you look, yeah, there's a lot of roots sticking out of the bank. But the depth from the bank, the top of the bank down to the creek is only about a foot or 15 inches. This is really not a situation where you would want to come in there and try to do any kind of stabilization, because it's really not an active erosion. So again, it's a good idea to bring somebody in, whether it's an engineer, whether it's somebody from the state, or whether it's somebody from the town, to take a look at it and decide if it's really something that needs resources put toward it to do some stabilization. Regulatory considerations, again, permits and so forth. Both of these examples here, those are really stable. Those are stabilized really nice. The agencies, Lyle and the folks at the state are going to have some concerns if you want to do this with a stream in your backyard, either of these situations. You have to figure out what kind of projects, what kind of work you can do that is permittable. Access, easements, and encroachments. Here's a piece of property. You see he's got a stream going through the backyard, typical residential property, and the stream's eroding. So the homeowner decides they want to do something to hold off the erosion and stop losing their backyard. Well, if we bring in some of the other GIS layers, you can see facing the property along the left side of the property, this green line, that's a sewer. Okay, that's a sewer easement. So that's something you have to consider if you're going to bring equipment down that side of the property. The town's going to have something to say about that, depending on how deep the sewer line is, whether it's a ductile iron line or a PVC line. And you may need to get an agreement. You may have to get a permit or enter into an encroachment agreement to use that sewer easement to come down here to do work on your property. Similarly, you have a line running across the back of the property. So that's going to have to be crossed every time a piece of equipment is going to be down there doing work. Similarly, on the other side of the property, you see a yellow line. That's a stormwater pipe. So these are all things that are going to have to be considered when you're looking at doing a project on your property. What types of easements, what types of utilities do you have that are going to have to be looked at? It's important to figure out whose project it is. Okay, if this is in your backyard and you've got a exposed sewer line, guess what? That might not be something you need to do. It might be something that the town will come in and do. So again, it's really important early on to have someone from the municipality come out and take a look, because if it's an exposed sewer line, that's not yours to fix. That may be something that the town will fix. Even this one down here on the lower right, you can see the manhole's right next to the stream. So that may be a situation where the town would go, we probably need to come in and do something about that to avoid that from eroding further and potentially exposing our infrastructure. So again, municipal considerations. What kind of things is your town going to be looking at? Are there utilities in the project area that they're going to have to take a look at and possibly impose some restrictions on what you can do? Things like how heavy your piece of equipment can be or how it's going to get down to your property. We're gonna look at topography and easements and other infrastructure. Are there fences and things that you're going to have to look at? Are you going to need to cut any trees? Cary has some champion tree ordinances that if you have a really big tree, we may not want you removing that tree. And then you may also need to get access agreements with neighbors if your contractor in accessing to get down to the back of your property is partially crossing onto neighbors' properties. So here's a residential lot. You see here on the left-hand side is from our GIS. Now the stream channel is shown off the property, but in this specific case, it was actually on the property. So the little red circle denotes where the citizen wanted to do some stabilization. It was a small area, but you see when we turn on our utility layer, we've got some sewer lines in there. So here's a survey of the property, and you can see the sewer easements along the back of the property, a drainage easement along the back of the property. So we asked the citizens, said, well, we would like to see a plan of what you want to do, since you will be working close to our sewer line. We want to see how you're going to get down to the property. So the citizen had their contractor draw up some plans. So here's a cross-sectional plan. You see he's planning on doing work on just one side of the property or one side of the stream. And they're going to stabilize this bank that was eroding back toward his house. And here you see a kind of an overhead view. Here's the stream down here, and here's the area where they're planning on placing rock. And then here, or actually, this is not over. This is a view facing, so as if you're standing here and facing the work area. And then here's your overheads where there's existing, where they've got this stream bank erosion here. Oh, here they're showing where they're placing the rock. And then finally over on the right here, you see, we said, well, you've got a easement and a sewer easement along the left side. We're concerned about you bringing equipment down there. So they showed us this survey with the red markings, which shows they're going to take the equipment down the right side. That's the kind of stuff that we want to see when they come in to talk to us about the project. Okay, here was an HOA project. This again was in my neighborhood. You can see here that the stream is eroding up to this greenway. This is a private greenway. This is owned by the HOA, and they were concerned that the greenway was going to get undermined. Now there is a sewer line through here, and they did come to us and say, so you have a sewer line in here. Is it something you need to do anything about? And the town came back and said, the sewer line's pretty deep. The stream's not up to it yet. So the town is, as far as the town's concerned, they're going to just watch and wait. But the HOA felt they needed to go ahead to protect their greenway. So they went ahead with the project. Here's an overhead view. There's that sewer line running along there. This is the area where they were going to do the stabilization, and the greenway trail comes right through here as well. So they actually brought in an engineer on this project who prepared some plans. Okay, you can see here's the area of concern where it's eroding. There was some riprap placed there, but the riprap was not doing the job. Here's the plan showing what they intended to do. The former path of the creek was up this way. You can see they're going to come in here. They're going to reconstruct the channel further away from the greenway. And then these are just different areas where they're going to be doing filling. They're going to create a floodplain terrace and plant that up, and then a fill slope here. And then here's their grading plan where they're showing, here's the old channel. They're going to backfill here. This is showing the new slopes and the relocated channel. So on the left-hand side, you could see the eroded area. And on the right, this is what it looked like a couple of months after the project was done. So the area on the left is actually right about here. So you can see they moved that stream over a good bit. This project was paid for totally with HOA funds, but it's still, you know, it's the type of project that we're talking about with the CCAP program. And they had to submit all those plans and stuff so the town could really take a look at you know, what kind of work was being proposed. So in summary, what you want to do is, if you think you have a problem in your backyard, contact your municipality, probably be talking with someone in stormwater or in engineering, have them come out, take a look at what you have. Got to figure out, is it a stream? Because if it's not a stream, you probably don't have any permitting issues. There's a lot more flexibility on what you're going to be able to do if it is just a ditch or a drainage way. Is it a problem that needs fixing? You know, sometimes streams naturally erode. That's something they do. And in some cases, it may be that while you have some erosion going on, it's very slow. It's not really doing any damage. And it's not necessarily something that you know, requires a resource to be put to it. You want to develop a scope of work. Do you want to do it? Are you going to do it yourself? Are you going to hire a contractor or a consultant? And then what are your costs, and are there options for funding? You know, you have the CCAP program through Soil and Water Conservation. You have a number of programs available through the state that may be open to you, maybe not as a backyard project, but if it's an HOA project, a larger scale project, you need to figure out what kind of permits and permissions you're going to get from the federal and state agencies, what kind of submittals you're going to have to the municipality. In the town of Cary, you don't necessarily need permits, but sometimes you're going to have an encroachment agreement if you're using a sewer easement to come in. Again, then you secure your construction funding if you are getting funding from an outside. And once you get all your approvals, then you proceed with your project. So if there's any questions, I'm available to answer any questions. This is not in my backyard. This is in the mountains, but it's just a picture I like a lot. And here's some contact information for me, as well as the town of Cary has a specific web page geared towards stream bank erosion and stabilization assistance. So this could be helpful if you're in the town of Cary. And with that, I will unshare my screen. And if there's any questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much, Eric. I was just looking at the comment and chat boxes. I don't currently see any questions that have come in, but we can give individuals a minute or two to write anything in. There is a slight delay on the live stream, so it might take them a minute. Just checking one more time to see if any questions have come in. And there'll be some additional time after Lyle's presentation as well for another Q&A session. So if any questions come in between then, I can always bring them back up. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. So Lyle, I will go ahead and hand it over to you. And Eric, if any other questions, like I said, if they come up after Lyle's presentation, we can cover them in the second Q&A. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michaela. Thank you, Eric. My name is Lyle Phillips. I'm a regulatory specialist with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Today, I'm going to give you a little introduction to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I'm going to talk about who we are. I'm going to talk about our authority, our jurisdiction, and a brief description into some of the permitting that is common in Wake County. The Raleigh Regulatory Office, commonly referred to as the RFO, is located in Wake Forest, North Carolina. Look at the map in the lower left-hand corner, shows how the state of North Carolina is divided into 4 regulatory field offices.
Lyle,
Yes?
I apologize to interrupt. I think you're not sharing your presentation at the moment, so we can't see anything.
Oh, sorry about that. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay. Sorry, I'll have to start over.
No problem.
Again, Lyle Phillips with the Army Corps of Engineers. Introduction to the Army Corps of Engineers. We're going to talk about who we are, some of our authorities, the jurisdiction of the Army Corps of Engineers, as well as some permitting. The Raleigh Regulatory Field Office is located in Wake Forest. Look in the left-hand corner here. You'll see the state of North Carolina is divided into 5 areas with 5 regulatory field offices. The RFO, there in the middle, you can see the counties outlined in blue are what the RFO is responsible for. Currently, we have 6 project managers in the RFO, and I think we are responsible for 25 counties at the moment. Due to the workload in Wake County, we've divided it between 5 different project managers. You can see it's divided by local municipality. If you're not in one of these local municipalities, you'll be divvied to the project manager that makes the most sense. So if the project's located, proximity to Raleigh, it will probably come to me. The site at the top of the slide is a good place to start. It's kind of the regulatory homepage. There you can find all the contacts for different counties and different municipalities. It's also a place where you can receive guidance on how to submit different projects. Getting into authorities. Under the Clean Water Act, was developed to restore and maintain the integrity of the nation's waters. Within the Clean Water Act, Section 404 was established to, it established a permit program to be administered by the Corps of Engineers. Under Section 404, the Corps of Engineers regulates the discharge of dredged or fill material into waters of the U.S. Under Section 10 of the Rivers and Harbors Act, the Corps regulates activities in, over, and under navigable waters. Waters of the United States, jurisdictional waters, they're all used kind of interchangeably. I'll probably continue that throughout. They all mean the same thing. And what I'm talking about is territorial seas, tributaries, lakes, ponds, and impoundments of jurisdictional waters, and adjacent wetlands. I'll note that this is what is jurisdictional right now. Now that we've gone through what is jurisdictional, it's also important to note where our jurisdiction starts. The term we use is ordinary high water mark. That is where the Corps' jurisdiction starts for certain features. In Wake County, there are areas that have riparian buffers. That can be a state implemented thing. It can also be by your local municipality. Just want to make it clear, the Corps does not determine or regulate riparian buffers. You see on the right hand of this slide is indicators that the Corps uses to determine an ordinary high water mark. We'll take a look at some examples. Some are fairly obvious. These are larger systems. You can see that you may have just a natural line impressed on the bank, very obvious bed and bank. Some, maybe this right-hand side slide is a little not clear. I think the important thing to take away is if you're unclear what the ordinary high water mark is, reach out to a consultant, reach out to the Corps. We'll help you with that. Here are some examples of some smaller systems. So again, strong bed and bank, pretty obvious on the left hand of the slide, not so much on the right hand. But it's important to note that this is more common what we see. There's very little question about the first two images. These two, more common and can be more difficult. I think it's also important to note there's no water in the image to the right-hand side. That doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't have an ordinary high water mark. The indicators on the previous slide, this area you have a change in plant community. You probably have a change in soil characteristics. You may have sediment deposits. Those are all indicators of ordinary high water mark. Wetlands. Some wetlands are very easy to identify. Like streams, cypress swamps and wetland marsh, they are very clear. Others, not so much. Particularly in Wake County, what we're going to be looking at most often is similar to the image in the top left-hand corner. This is characteristic of a bottomland hardwood forest or a headwater forest wetland. These are most common in Wake County, and it may not be obvious that you have a wetland on your property. The definition of a wetland, I think the takeaway from this is inundation and saturation frequent enough and for a sufficient duration that vegetation will prevail in saturated soil conditions. So that is what we are looking for, and how we do that is by these three parameters. The Corps uses a wetland determination form. We fill that out in the field. So it's boots on the ground. It's something that has to be done physically. We'll be looking for hydrophytic vegetation, hydric soils, and hydrology at a certain area. So once we establish if there is jurisdictional waters on the property and potential activities may impact these, then we get into permitting. Types of permits. Individual standard permits are for larger scale impact projects. These are for projects whose impacts are more than minimal. They exceed the thresholds of the nationwide permits or the regional general permits. Nationwide permits, we're going to talk about those more in depth. They are by far the most common. They're most common in Wake County. Regional general permits are specific to a certain region, specific to a certain activity in that region. I believe we have 12 regional permits at the moment. Nationwide general permits. We currently have 58 nationwide permits. These are for commonly recurring activities that have minimal cumulative adverse impacts. Nationwide permits have standard conditions, regional conditions, and may or may not have special conditions. Some require notification to the Corps. Some do not require notification to the Corps. It's important to note that if your project does not require notification to the Corps, you still have to follow the conditions of that permit. So you are operating under a permit, even if you do not have to tell the Corps that your activities are taking place. Those conditions still apply. We're going to go through some common permits in Wake County. This will lead right into Eric's presentation. This is very common for eroded streams. Nationwide Permit 13, Nationwide Permit programs for common activities. This is for bank stabilization. As with all nationwide permits, there are conditions. I've put some of the ones for Nationwide Permit 13 here. Nationwide Permit 29. This is for residential developments. It's for single residential, multiple residents, and even like large scale subdivisions. Nationwide Permit 29 has threshold limits for loss of tidal waters, stream bed, and total waters. It's important to note that you must notify for all projects that require a Nationwide Permit 29. It's also important to note that we look at the total project. In Wake County, there are a lot of phased residential subdivisions. When it comes to permitting for the Corps of Engineers, we look at the complete project. So when you come in for an application, you should account for all impacts for that residential development. You cannot piecemeal it by phase. Nationwide Permit 39 for commercial and institutional development. Conditions are similar to the 29. Thresholds for losses of non-tidal waters, stream bed, and total waters. This can be for small scale commercial up to very, very large projects. Again, we're looking at the total complete project. Cannot be piecemealed. Nationwide Permit 58. This is for utility line activities for water and other substances. This is also applied to sewer, stormwater. Oil and natural gas are authorized under Nationwide Permit 12, and electric and telecommunications are under Nationwide Permit 57. One important note about Nationwide Permit 58 is that there must be no change in pre-construction contours of waters. Other permitting options that are common in Wake County. Nationwide Permit 18 is for minor discharges. This is for smaller scale projects. The limits are, I believe, 1/10 of an acre. Nationwide Permit 14. This is for linear transportation projects. And this can include roadways all the way down to a greenway. This is a project that's looked at each individual crossing. So you have separate and complete projects. Nationwide Permit 3 is for maintenance, and this is for repair, rehabilitation of any previously authorized structure. That's important to note. This is not for an unauthorized activity. If you need maintenance that is similar to what was previously authorized with minimal difference, then Nationwide Permit 3 is an option, but it must be previously authorized. And that's it for me. Any questions?
Lyle, I'm not seeing any questions right now. I'll give individuals another minute or two to see if they type anything in the chat box. Not seeing any questions so far. We're a little early, but your presentations were so great. I guess no one had questions. They were so thorough. I can give individuals one more minute before closing us out. Okay, well, thank you so much, Eric and Lyle, for your presentations today. And thank you to everyone that attended this presentation. Again, like I said, we're going to be doing these lunch and learns every Tuesday for the months of June and July. So if you're interested in other presentations, feel free to check our website out at wakegov.com/helplunch. If there's any questions that were not answered, or if you think of something later, please feel free to email us at swcd@wakegov.com. I'll add that email to the chat box so people can see it. But that's all. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.